Hey, hey, hey! Be very welcome. This is the first Reimagining Wealth Initiative touchdown of 2022. I'm here with Anthony. Anthony has a little bit of cold, I think.
Oh, I don't have a cold. It's cold in the house, but I don't have a cold.
Yeah, has a cold. Okay, okay, okay.
We have a
just
cold
kidding.
snap right now.
Yeah, and we're here to reignite, let's say, in a very peer-to-peer fashion. Me and him, me, in a very peer-to-peer fashion, reunite this initiative for this year. It's interesting. This is the third tentative. This is the third tentative that we've been trying to reunite it because January is always a vacation month for most of people. So it's nice to have Anthony here, and it's nice to begin with him, right? And
Just
we
like
have a
summer.
lot. Yeah, it's nice, man. And I'm going to share here the screen so everybody who is going to watch this before after will have let's say a bird's eye view of everything that we what we'd like to start uh, start discussing again or making making uh, making new ways to understand how this proposal, this reimagining wealth initiative, can gain life in a more, let's say, pragmatic and practical way. Not that we weren't practical and pragmatical, we were starting to do experiences, right? But here it is. So uh, uh, one of the topics that I find really interesting to share is about the exciting news about Threefold as a whole, related to their third version of their grid, right? So it's going to be nice uh, to ha- work and share a little bit what have been the improvements that they've done for their let's say Web3 grid uh, in 2021, when what they are, let's say, expecting for 2022 as in the concept of the planetary network, right? So here you have here you have their actual status quo operational. They have 1,405 nodes. They are present in 57 countries and have 23,497 cores. What is really interesting. And we can, of course, we can talk about this. And the second thing is to properly digest and intermingle with Lauren, but Lauren is not here, uh, what she proposed as a dance floor dynamics to deal with all sorts of initiatives, endeavors, and projects in a very network way, right? So this is something that we can uh, we can reignite, restart the conversations about it. I felt that was we just uh, we just make some introduction to it. We just grasp the concept, but we didn't really do any type of experimentation with. So this is the second thing. The third thing is about the results of the match funding, the 12th match funding, Gitcoin's match funding round of 2021. They shared some results, really interesting results that we can talk about, and the review that they did for 2021. And yeah, this is something that we can have some conversations around. And finally, fresh new inputs for for the co-creation. Oh, wait a minute, what I've done here? Yeah, for the co-creation of what we've been calling ecology of DAOs, right? To generate a decentralized shareable fund, to generate all the culture of mutual access, peer-to-peer mutual access, and things like that. So, as you see, I'm not. as you see, Anthony, and now TB, my friend, is here. Oh, that's nice. Uh, as you see, there's a lot of things that we can have conversations around, right? Not only these four topics. Of course, you guys, we have the manufacturing endeavor that Anthony is involved with, that we could talk in a very reimagining wealth perspective, let's say. We have the actual OVN actual explorations and co-creations that even I think that Anthony is involved too, and other guys around comparing the Open Value Network with DAOs. It's a recent thing. It's becoming a paper, as I saw. Well, there's a lot of things that we can talk about. So that's it, guys. So who wants to say, "Wow, this is that's let's start from here." I like that. I like that topic. I don't know. It's up to you guys. So
I'm a fan of the ecology of DAOs. Look forward to talking about that one.
yeah, yeah, can be. Hey, Chibi.
Yeah.
Hello, guys.
Hey, you were in bed, right? I'm right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What's the most
Now
central
it's
place
early
to
morning for me, 10
be?
o'clock.
You were in bed, yeah. So, okay, let me see. Anthony said that was interesting if we can have conversations about DAOs, right? And I
About
actually
DAOs?
about
Yeah.
DAOs and comparing to the OVN dynamics. So
Mm-hmm.
that you guys started. I think that is a good place to start. I would like to share that in 2020, in the midst of 2020, I started to write a paper about DAOs, right? But it was more had more a relationship with this cultural DAO concept that we came up with time. And if you guys want, I can share this document. It's not completed. I didn't complete it, but I can
Yes.
share. Yes, I
Yeah.
can share, and we can look. We can have a critical look at it,
Is
and
it in
maybe
Portuguese?
is in English,
Okay.
and we can is in English, and we can derive things from him and see because I already looked the structure, the way that you guys structure this document, right? DAOs versus OVN. So I think that it will be a nice way to start this conversation. So
Yeah.
let me
I'd be
just.
careful because it's not one versus the other. It's framed as what is the
Yeah.
complementarity between.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I,
It's not like
I
a competition, which one is
They're
better.
both
It's like,
decentralized organizations, right?
sorry?
They're both decentralized organizations, and it's about getting stuff done without hierarchy, or not necessarily without hierarchy, but in a relatively decentralized manner, right? They're both pursuing something similar.
Yes, yes, but the concept of DAO is not necessarily decentralized or decentralization. They call it like that, but the way you see a lot of things getting implemented, what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say is that you can use tokens to create something highly centralized.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but
It
I
is
mean, it is in the name. I mean, come on. If they're not
in the
doing it,
name. Yes, in the
it's possible
name.
they're not doing it right, but yeah,
Yeah, but they're not necessarily decentralized and they're not necessarily open.
that's true. Yeah, that's right.
That's the thing.
yeah, I got you. And I I didn't. It's interesting because I saw this document yesterday, TB, and but I just passed my eyes through it. I didn't really start. I didn't read it, right? And I had this impression that you put it verses.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
If you saw that somewhere, it's not me who wrote it, but because there's also Steve, the guy that started the initiative. But we don't want to frame it like that. We don't want to frame like who's better, this and that, because there is stuff that we haven't thought about. Um, and there is stuff that they're not taking into consideration as of yet. So oh, here you
So,
go, Udo
so,
Lab. Mhm.
so yeah, the Utopia DAO Lab is still is not something that is existing, but all the documentations in let's say in a structured way, but all the documentation around the experience of Utopia and all the concepts that are coming to fruition, like the cultural DAO concept, I have been documenting as the OO DAO Lab, right? So, in a very in a very embryonic, let's say, version of it. So, here we go. What I was calling the Utopia flow would be the Utopia DAO blueprint for it. This is a white paper version, but this is not, as I said, this is not completed. Okay, this is
Mhm.
just something that I start writing just to illustrate what we're trying to convey as experiment. And it's actually I'm going to revise everything. I'm going to update it to the actual way that Utopia is being, let's say, co-created. And yeah, so what we have here is this graph that at the time in 2021 it makes some sense, right? What we were calling OO DAO, Utopia Cultural DAO, was all sorts of alpha stage and then beta stage dynamics. Alpha, in a sense that if you have a project that is related to regeneration, and it's related this vast array of regeneration, you could just share the project in the Utopia's environment. Let's say in Utopia's Discord would have a channel for it, and the people interested in having conversations about would have start start coming around it, having some conversations and having some scheduled conversations about it, right? And to come up with, let's say, a type of uh, a type of little very basic blueprint of what actually is the project and how you envision that it has a conversation with the regenerative P2P movement and how it can come to fruition, right? So this is considered as an alpha stage dynamics in the in Utopia's cultural DAO dynamics. So the starting points are conversations, are interactions, are conversations, are not protocols, or not policies, or protocols or policies, structured protocols or policies to say uh, to to say that the project is eligible or not eligible. It's just you just share the project and see if people, wow, this is interesting. I want to talk about this. So comes around, right? Once he starts to have really, just let's say, uh, some volume, some conversations volume, some volume of interaction,
Mhm.
peer-to-peer interaction. Uh, uh, we only from this point on, we start to structure it. We start to
Mhm.
configure it. We start to structure it, and as a first template, let's say. We put in a first template to start to experimenting with it. So it's still in alpha stage, so we start to experimenting it. And if the proposed structure of this first template really makes sense, in a sense that is attracting and gathering people around it, interesting, we start to have conversations about what type of social technology in a very open source and centralized way would be interesting to use as a minimal organizational framework for it. A minimal organizational framework. And it can be holacracy, sociocracy, it can be O2, it can be anything, right? So, yeah, let's experiment O2, that is organic organization dynamics, or let's experiment with holacracy. So, we start to add more structure complexity for the dynamics. It's still an alpha stage, okay? So now you already have something that have people that are not driven, were not initially driven by the economic benefits that he can has with the project, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
very interested with it. Now you have that basic organizational framework to really start to deep dive and in a vertical manner all the crucial points to make that endeavor really gain life, right? Uh, and yeah, and at this point we start to net to weave it. So this is the point that is really important. What it is, we start to net to weave it between our social worlds, in between our social. We start to net to weave it within other networks, within other, let's say, social worlds, as I said, other projects, right? Other endeavors that has the same frequency, let's say, same value proposal that resonates in the same value proposal that this project has. So, in that sense, uh, it becomes something that it's not more, let's say, is not only, it becomes, it's not only, it, 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 it becomes something really really out there, let's say. It's like ECTB is like outreach dynamics without the concepts of outreach dynamics of something that is done, that you can come and add value to it. So it's something, it's an outreach dynamics like doing an OCAST experience, but in a sense that you just expose, you just share this minimal organic framework and its value proposal and see how people gathers around what people wants to add, wants to aggregate, wants to uh, uh, give more substance for it, right? Substance.
Gene,
So
can I intrude a little bit here? What are we like? Where's this all going? Like, how long is this gonna go on for?
yeah, well, we're just getting started, but we can end. It's no
No, but I
problem.
mean, like, it's kind of hard to keep up with what's going on. It's kind of hard to keep track of what exactly you're talking about sometimes.
Yeah, maybe Chibi can can help me here, right? Because today, incredibly today, with this really hot weather here in
Yeah.
Rio, my thinking is not clear, sharp, and so not that I'm having a hard time to convey things, I'm conveying it, but I'm really on a more slow pace than a rapid pace. You see, Anthony. So that's why
Exactly.
I may be not reaching out to you. So TB, if
Sorry,
TB
I'm
wants,
taking some notes actually, because I'm in the headspace of DAOs and OVN, so I was taking some notes as you were speaking, and I already picked up something pretty interesting. Um,
yeah, you
finishing
see,
my notes here.
I'm just getting started in this sense, TB, because after the
Yeah.
alpha stage, we go to the beta mode.
Hmm.
And the beta mode is when this endeavor, this project, this initiative has all the inputs, has the the starting culture, let's say the starting ethos and
Yeah.
culture to gain development.
Yeah.
And and we're able to talk about economics. We're able to
Yes,
talk
yes,
about
yeah. So
the
my question here. Um, well, you call it a DAO. You call it a DAO. I think it's you've been in the space of peer-to-peer for a long time, and that gives you gives you the fair right to call things name things the way you want. Um, but it is a special use of the term DAO, okay? Because the normal use of the term DAO that people go crazy about today is that structure comes first. Okay,
yeah, I
so
know.
the structure precedes the formation of the organization. And the way you see it is like you see one or two guys or three guys, very small group, sitting around and designing some type of token engineering because they want to provoke some sort of action. They're essentially designing a game. That's what they do. They're designing a game. They set up the rules. They set up the incentives, and then they let it out there, and they expect that other people will play the game, and that will form a community or a network, and will shape the action. Okay, and achieve the initial goals if the incentives are well aligned with the goals. So you see, structure comes first, and it's a sort of an engineering approach, right? It is an engineering approach. It's like, okay, let's create this structure, and we believe that the outcome will be this society and this type of actions. Okay, um, and that it's not too far from OVNs, from how Sensorica does things. There is a model, okay, and there is a way to structure data about activities and capture data about activities, and there are some propositions. It's not let's say it's not fixed. There is no game pre-assigned to all the open ventures within the ecosystem. Um, People can decide whatever game they want to play, but there are some tools and there is some philosophy. So let's say the game is framed. Let's say the game is framed to keep the organization open, to keep things flowing, to keep it highly collaborative, to enhance sharing. So there is a framing around the games. You can't just create any game. With the DAOs, you can create any game. Okay, you can create a competitive game if you want. You just put it in a smart contract. I want some people to compete on something, and at the end we vote, and the money from the treasury, from the wallet of the DAO, goes automatically to the winner. So you can frame it like that if you want, and you can do it like that. But so there is some slight difference, but there is a structure. Okay, so if you want to create an open venture within the Sensorica OVN, you do have a blueprint to follow. It's like saying there's a species, okay, and if you want to become part of this colony of species, then you inherit you're framed, okay, within the Sensorica OVN, you're framed. Okay, that's why some people don't like it, because they're pressured towards high degree of openness, transparency, and collaborative behavior. Okay, so in that sense, you're framed. So now let me go back to you, Vinny. What do you think is the advantage if you let it totally emergent? I have the impression that you let it totally. So you say, let's put the economic. Let's not talk about the game. Let's not formalize. Let's think about the economics later and start it as something that is fun, that is genuinely interesting for people, and let that form. And so slowly you have people getting together, and then structure emerges from that kind of practice, right? Why do you think what do you think are the advantages of putting the community, of forming the community first and having the structure emerge after, which is exactly the opposite what the DAOs do, right?
Yeah, because you see, first of all, we are social cultural beings, right? We are driven by narratives. We are driven by stories, by narratives. We are the narratives and our potential to aggregate things that driven us as a species as a whole. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that, as you said, I'm very ingrained in the peer-to-peer movement, in the commons environment, all sorts of commons environments, and my experiences in the commons environment are very complex driven in the sense that they're not structured, they're very interactive, they're very open.
Yes.
So the main social technology is interaction, right? Interaction on all fronts, in all ways. Is not. We're not talking about participation here. We're not talking about something that is pre-designed, right?
Yes.
And so there's no pre-design. It's all based in interaction. Actually, when we're talking about Utopia, the app that is already out there in the beta version of Utopia, as you know, I don't know if Anthony knows that, but is already out there.
Yes, I know, yeah.
Yeah, it came exactly from this framing here in CTB. We started as an alpha. It attracted people. It gained more traction. It gained more complexity. Then, yeah, let's work with O2 social technology framework. We started working with it, configuring the first circle, the roles, who wants to energize what, and when we have the concepts, we have the let's say the first concept of how the app was going to be configured, that we start to talk about what type of economics we're talking about here. So we have a lot of conversations about what type of economics. It had to be, of course, related to the regenerative movement. And when we look out to see what the regenerative movement was doing, we saw that it was not something totally, or was not totally collaborative or totally sharing. Was something that was a mixture between something of a gig economy with some collaborative imprints on it and sharing things. And put in other words, it wasn't something that was, it was not, it didn't have a wholesome approach, let's say. Something that is oh, we're going to work with this economic or this economic and dystoeconomics recipe here. No, you don't have a unique recipe to it. So that's the first thing that we saw in the research, in doing this net weaving, right? This opening net weaving, and start having conversations with the Regen network, with the Shia network, with all sorts of guys that you can imagine, right? And it was interesting because that's why it was interesting, because it was exactly when I encountered you, TB. We encountered when we were doing first of all, we start co-creating, let's say, cultural imprints related to the value proposal. One of them is the OCAST experience, right? So you have 20 minutes to change the world. That is another cultural imprint. And we start with the OCAST experience. And it was interesting that the first movement that we made was put all the post-production related to OCAST experience, that is a decentralized podcasting experience of Utopia, as you know, in another DAO that was emerging, that is Tau DAO. So all the post-production around the OCAST experience was done by other people in another DAO that's related to the regenerative movement called Tau DAO. So, wow, that was really huge, we thought, because we're not having any type of, we're not contracting anyone. Uh, we're not, Taodao is not an organization, as you know, is an organism. And people, when saw the value proposal of the OCAS, they felt, wow, this is great. Yeah, I want to do the post-production of it. And they start to do without asking how much they will earn, right? And that was huge too. So that gave us the impression that this dynamic could really start co-creating a new blueprint to reframe wealth and investment in a way to let's say endeavor whatever you want, but with a very regenerative imprint, right? In a sense that not is not related to the startup world where everything is timed, everything is planned, everything has milestones, roadmaps, and things like that. So yeah, so I encountered with you, and we did that first OCAS experience. Me was not me, right? It was Michelle that reached out to you, Michelle Bounds, reached out to you, and we had that first OCAS experience. Me, Florian,
Yeah.
and Michelle. Yeah, yeah, we were in that stage. We weren't in beta. Now we're in beta. We are in alpha, and now we're in beta. And it came out of this type of net weaving expansion, right? Having conversations with all sorts of projects, endeavors related to the peer-to-peer regenerative movements, that the idea of cultural DAO started to consolidate. Wow, this is something, we have something here, right? We have something here. This is not something only theoretical. We have something really here that we can put. So when I looked what you in Sensorica was doing related to wealth, and I saw the wealth transfer proposal, I said, wow, there's something. These guys are really having some conversations about, and we're starting to have the conversations about. So that's why we joined pens, right? we join we join our tables and pens, and let's cook together. That's so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we start to do what we calling now reimagining wealth, right? So, and the term ecology of DAOs was something that was being ventilated within us, not with you, right, Chibi, but you in the sequence. But if I say, wow, it's good to be nice to have a super organism of all sorts of DAOs that are doing, or even not, doesn't need to be DAOs, it can be a Sensorica, OVN Sensorica Dynamics, and where we can co-create an environment, a very empathic-driven environment of this decentralized shareable fund, where the main technology, the main social peer-to-peer technology is this mutual access dynamic. So that's the ecology of DAO, where we're measuring wealth by the way that everybody strengthens everybody, everybody that is involved in this entranced, entangled environment, right? Where you don't have organizational boundaries. It's not there's a organizational body here, and you do a partnership. No, it's not that type of thing. That's old world version. That's the old world way to do business or to endeavor whatever, even in the NGO space, right? So that's it in a nutshell. But I can talk. I can really talk because I can characterize a little bit better what we consider the beta mode, and how we are envisioning the type of mutual funding through the ecology of DAOs, right? So
Does
I think that we
Anthony have?
lost. I think that we lost Anthony with this, for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking, does he have any input?
Yeah,
Anthony,
I'm still here. I'm still here. I just went to go and play with the dog for a bit.
Okay.
I have a dog for a short time.
Yeah, I know, I'm aware. Yes. So, do you have anything to input? I mean, to
No, I'm
okay. Um, yeah. Interesting. So what I see here is that so Anthony, I don't know when you got distracted, but the whole idea here was structure or communities before. What comes first? And we were thinking that DAOs take this very engineering approach. I'm designing a game and I want to provoke a certain type of action, whereas Vinny is proposing to form the community first and let the structure emerge, let the rules emerge. What I and so Vinny, so you spoke about interaction and participation. It's not the first time you bring these concepts, and I like that very much. So when you say interaction, um, it's this very peer-to-peer, non-hierarchical um, way of, well, coming together in a transaction. But I think it's even a more primitive than transaction. Transaction is an interaction, but then all interactions are not necessarily transactions. So I think it's interaction is a more fundamental primitive than transaction. Um, but I guess what I understand from your approach, like why do you think you need to build a community first and let the structure emerge up? Because I think the most successful socioeconomic structures that have emerged have a resonance within the human being, are kind of mapping very well human nature, right? So if you let the behavior emerge for fun with a bunch of people, if a bunch of people get together to do something, it's because that thing, and they're not responding to any formal, you know, game. They're not responding to an incentive, but they're just doing because they're motivated to do it or because it feels good to do it. That means that sort of action, collective action, is very close to human nature, right? So you let the thing form, um, and and kind of take roots on top of on top of human nature. And then once you have that natural response, you start to formalize and making sure not to disturb too much, right? So let's say let's say you have some people gathering together around the fireplace, and somebody's gonna start to play some music and somebody's gonna start to tell some jokes. You know, the normal spontaneous thing which humans like to do because we've evolved for a million years around the fire, telling stories and socializing, right? So it's very deeply ingrained in human nature, that kind of stuff. And then somebody wants to propose something. Okay, let's organize like this, and whoever does that eats the cake, and then at some point you kind of have a feeling that, well, that guy is pulling the magic out. It's like that proposition is too disruptive. We're not having fun anymore. So then you're trying to tweak that proposition so that we can still do that, what we came here to do. It still feels genuine and good, uh, even if we add some structure to it. It doesn't lose its soul, its initial purpose. So I think if you start engineering after the from what I understand, if you start engineering the structure, after the behavior has been created, um, you have a reference point from the behavior and say, okay, let's engineer this structure, but in a way that doesn't frustrate what people are already experiencing, the good feel that emanates from that experience. So the experience is there, right? And then you have this feedback mechanism. Okay, so if we tweak this rule, does that poison the experience? Are people leaving the fireplace, or they're still staying there and having maybe the same fun or more fun? So I think what I understand is that you want to create the experience first through that interaction, which is not.
But that takes some structure too. Like I would argue that the idea of there not being any structure when you're building the experience and you're trying to put people together, there is still structure there. There's quite a bit of structure. It may be hard to describe, or it may be hard to put your finger on, but there's still a lot of
Yeah,
stuff there.
yes, yeah. I'm talking more about like formal structure, like something
Yeah.
that you write on the wall to say the Ten Commandments, you know.
Okay.
Say, okay, guys, from now on, yeah. You're totally right. There is structure, and there are influencers, and there is roles, and there is the clown that tells jokes, and there's the guy that plays the guitar in the corner. So there is
But I
structure.
think
You're right.
I think the most goal of all would be to be found in describing structure, which includes formal structure, but
Yeah, Anthony.
little alien looking down at things. Right?
In the network sciences, the new network sciences, uh, when we're studying and experimenting the interactive phenological dynamics that occur within, right? Uh, the what emerges as something that wants to metabolize, wants to materialize, wants to uh, come to fruition, is not exactly a structure in the sense that you put it. Is a pattern. Is a pattern of organization. So uh, uh, is organization is a pattern of organization that can be centralized, can be decentralized, can be distributed. It is not totally one thing or another, right? It's not totally centralized, not totally decentralized, not totally. Is more something like uh, you have all sorts of patterns of organizations coming around as this fireplace dynamic goes on, right? In some moment it's going to be more centralized, so that's the pattern of organization at that moment. Some moment is going to be more decentralized, all sorts of conversations around the fireplace. Some moment is going to be distributed. People are going to be more expansive, they're not being so cohesive. So you have all sorts of patterns running at the same time. This doesn't give really a structure, right? In the sense that you're talking. It doesn't really give a structure, but it gives a base. Yeah, it gives a baseline. It gives a baseline to people thrive through it, and see through the thriving through it. What could be really structure in a very minimal way, in a very minimal framework, organizational framework. So that's the second moment, right? Well, you see, this is not something that I'm theorizing with you guys. Something that I've been experimenting. So I'm not talking about something theoretical here, so, right? Because as we're speaking here, Utopia is gaining life through this proposal that you guys are seeing on the screen here. So and it involves actually 11 people, and directly, and 11 people are gathering around and doing this happen. So this cultural DAO proposal, right? And it shocks me to understand that we never really had touch. We really didn't have the opportunity in this initiative here, this weekly initiative, to talk about that with this lenses and this perspective. It's quite shocking me here that I didn't give the time to share, or even to share this doc here, and have some conversations around, because in some sense I thought erroneously that you guys were already, let's say, in tune or open or in tune with this type of let's say perspective, right? That's why we started talking about ecology of DAOs and things like that. So in a very regenerative way. But I'm just saying, I'm just noticing, highlighting this, because we didn't feel, it's not only me, we didn't feel that we were structuring things, right? In the first moment, in this very early alpha phase. It was just really all sorts of patterns of organization with different modes of regulation. some modes more vertical, some more horizontal, some modes more transitional to because we find ourselves in a place that things are not laser sharp, so things can you just wander around exploring, having conversations, exploring, expanding some things, and contracting others. So that's it. I just want to add, man, to say that we didn't feel as we were structuring something. We didn't feel in this sense. We did feel some different patterns of organization. That's something very different from structure, at least for us that are experimenting it.
Yeah, I guess the difference here is that it's more fluid and can migrate from one state or pattern, like you call it, to another, because there are no formal rules that put the activity in a box, say we can only do this or that, but not all the other things.
But people will
Whereas,
carry in their heads all kinds of rules anyway about what they can and can't do. Like there's going to be stuff about patriarchy, what women are supposed to be doing, what men are supposed to be doing. Like they all have rules like that. Like, it's just one example. So the point is that there's still a structure, and there may be patterns. I like the distinction between patterns and structure. It seems like structure is something you're trying to do, whereas a pattern is something that seems to happen on its own. But if you were like an alien looking down at the system, you could still say that
Mhm.
these people exhibit behavioral patterns, whether because they're trying or because they just tend to, because they've already learned the rules or because they're still trying to learn the rules, you know?
Yeah, I don't see much difference between structure and a pattern, but if you put formal
Yeah.
structure in place,
Yeah.
then it's written on a wall, so it acts like a law, right? So no, you cannot step there, so it's like a formal rule is people are conscious about it, and it comes with an associated reward or punishment. So where I think Vinny is talking about something that is more fluid. There are no such hard walls. It's like at some moment there is a guy that dominates the fireplace interaction, and he tells a story, everybody listens. So in that moment, everything is highly centralized. There's one guy talking, the other people are listening. And in some other moments, they talk across each other, and it becomes more noisy conversation. Nobody really controls. There is, or at some point they want to use the baton, let's say, because they want to talk about the thing. So now they're adding the structure. Okay, let's use the baton because everybody talks over each other, and
Yeah.
So the migration from one state to another is really fluid, because nobody came there before and say, we're going to do a circle of discussion today, and that framed the action, froze the action, okay, into one particular state. So it's kind of like free flowing, morphing from one thing to another based on how people feel now. So, but there's always a structure. There's always a structure, or if you want to call it a pattern, you can call it a pattern. But because it's not formal, it's like floating around and morphing, and it's like a patch of oil that you put into a river. It breaks up and it comes together and it becomes oval, round, different shapes.
That can be
So,
pretty detrimental too, though, because it may evolve in a direction that you don't want it to go in. Like I can see that.
Oh,
happen.
definitely. That's why people start fighting in these circumstances sometimes.
Yeah.
Because, yes, for sure.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, guys, is that as I said, this is not theory. This is practice. This is experience, right? This is very empirical, and we're, we're, we're we're coming out. We're sensing, and it becomes tangible how all sorts of ethos are welcoming to be part of this kind of ecology of different things, right? Of different dynamics, where because you see, from in my perspective, Anthony, pattern is something that emerges within, right? So it is very temporary. It's not something. It's very inconstant. So it's not really a structure in a sense that is more cohesive. is more, has a minimum of crystallization, and you can count on it as a structure. Structure, you can count on structures to put your foot on and give you one step and another, right? And another step. And at least for me, in my perspective, I think this is a very different thing. But I'm not saying that it doesn't have a structure, because it has. Once we feel that that binding dynamics, that binding human dynamics, empathic human dynamics, that made all us drive towards to materialize the value proposal of that project or the endeavor, we start co-creating some structure, some minimal, what do we call minimal organizational framework. Minimal, very minimal organizational. And we start talking about, in Utopian, we start talking about using the O2 social technologies to do that, right? O2 is a spin-off from holacracy and sociocracy. And there's an initial circle, there's some roles, and people start to energize these roles, right? But they start to energize the roles that they sense that in that sense, we start to verticalize, in a mode of regulation, we start to verticalize some dynamics. But this comes very natural. It doesn't come as something pre-structured or that needs a specialized person to do this, or you see, it comes at a very natural pace. And I'm not here making a concept of it. I'm just relating to the experience, how it is happening, right? So it comes very natural, and everybody feels very attractive to experiment different roles in this minimal organizational framework, right? That still is interactional, still is very impermanent, but because it's still in the alpha phase, right? And when we went now, like 2 months ago, we went 2 months ago to the beta mode. It's interesting because now we have all the core elements of what we're calling Utopia as a cultural DAO. We have the app that is being appropriated by hundreds, now dozens to hundreds of people, and the people are putting input of how they're feeling the app experience, right? And they are being stimulated to co-create the app within too, right? And they will earn Oz for that. Oz is the social currency, let's say, of the Utopia environment, right? And what they do with this Oz, they can change it to access all sorts of goods, services, and experiences. That is in a very ethical and regenerative marketplace that is just in the beginning. So you see, as you can see, the economics, people that are coming are really attracted by the concept, by the value proposed. They want to co-create the app. They see value in the app, not the app because of the app, but what are the value proposed behind it, and what encapsulates it as an experience for them, for a human experience for them. So they are really giving a lot of interesting inputs, and they are starting to understand this Utopia proposal in a broader sense. They're starting to have, is more tangible for them. These people that are coming, they are not related to the first circle. They are generating new circles, new roles, right? So now we have a main circle, a first circle, and we have 3 little circles, 3 decentralized circles in the beta mode that are related to communication, related to culturing, what we call cultural ethos, cultural imprint ethos of Utopia, and another one is related to communications, outreach, and culture. The third one is technology, right? Web 3, Web 4 technology. Uh, so these circles, these other circles, they emerge. They weren't pre-planned, right? They weren't pre-planned. They just emerged as a necessity to deepen, to verticalize the exploration of Utopia as a cultural DAO. Did, what was I able to share? Was I able to give a good explanation about this? Because as I said, my, my way of thinking today is
Yeah, but I wanna bring a nuance here. I want to bring a nuance because sometimes what emerges we cannot distinguish from what people already know and consciously or subconsciously reproduce. What I mean by that is also speaking from experience in Sensorica. There's a lot of people, they come in into a project, into an open venture, and then when it comes to, let's say, projecting the course of the venture, which means thinking about where we should go next and do some planning and stuff like that, and then put the conditions in place so that that action, that plan, it's fulfilled. They reproduce automatically. They reproduce automatically what they learn working in a company. They kind of know they're not in a company. They know this is an open network or an open venture, but yet they reproduce. So again, if you're if you're Anthony Zadian in the sky looking down, he might say, "Oh, here's a new structure that emerged. Somebody proposed, to a certain methodology of work." But in fact, that thing didn't really emerge. That thing was proposed, and people just went along with it because that's what they know. That's what they did in other organizational contexts. So what you're proposing here, you could see a parallel to working groups. Any network, has the formation of working groups, and anybody that has interacted with open networks, they've experienced working groups. So it might be, I'm not saying it is, but it might be that some people came and they just reproduced the same structure, saying, "Oh, why don't we create these clusters? And we're going to focus on technology. You're going to focus on the culture. We're going to focus on that." And you can think that emerged, but in a way it was provoked by people because they copy. Yeah, they reproduce the same pattern. They reproduce the same pattern, and pattern reproduction, if you want to speak the language of patterns, it's something that happens subconsciously. I don't have to be,
People also tend to, they're grasping at straws for what to do, right? So they have to pick something, and they just pick something that looks like, you sort of have to pick what you know, because anything you don't know is even worse in terms of being effective, because you don't know how to do it. So
yeah, you see, guys. First of all, this is not something that is a given, right? This is a this is an experience that is happening as we speak here. This is the first thing that I want to notice. The second thing is that people come with all sorts of preconditionings, how they understand organization or how they organize themselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's obviously that happens, and but there's not a policy instated in the sense that they have to adapt, right, to this experiment. No, the invitation is come with your conditionings, come with your perspective, come with your ethos and your culture, and let's have a conversation and let's do some materialization within us. That's the invitation, right? And it generates a lot of how I say, interaction is a very noisy thing, right? Interaction is not something smooth. Interaction, when we're really interacting, not confronting ourselves, but we're interacting, we're changing our ways of impressions and ways of thinking and doing things together, right? So interaction generates conflicts, and the type of conflicts that generates a co-creative energy. It generates a co-creative dynamics within the interaction that generates conflicts, or conflicts generate it's like a chicken egg dynamics, right? It feeds itself in eternal circle. But it's interesting that what comes out of this is actually things that are being doing. Things are, but the most interesting part for me, at least, is that we're doing things where you don't have the pre-design. First, we don't have something pre-structured. You don't have the pressures of something that has to be done, designed, and materialized because of economic constraints or because of investor constraints. So we're doing something in a very regenerative way that people always feels the pleasure to be doing it, to be co-creating it. So in a sense that even on those occasions that we have strong disagreements, and even with strong disagreements, it doesn't fall apart because people feel bounded in a very empathic and a very human way, right? So what sustains it is not the economic model. What sustains it is the real interest to see that happen, right? And most of all, in the bottom of it, in the top of it, I would add that in the case of Utopia, in the case of Taudao, in the things that I'm involved in co-creating, we're talking about something that is very related to the Zeitgeist, the winds of changing of times that we're within, right? And so people feel that they are doing something very transitional, and that is something that is informing new ways for each one to live their lives, right? Is giving them a ground to transition their lives to a most regenerative life in this sense. So it's not something that you're just co-creating because you're going to earn millions, or because it's going to be a big business and going to change the world. No, it's not that type of vibe that we're talking here. It's very different. So guys, yeah,
Right?
yeah. You see, once more, my friends, I felt that I should share this earlier in one of our touchdowns in 2021, but it's interesting how this didn't came apart, because I was very interesting to better know Sensorica, Chibi, you, Anthony, Lauren, everyone that was coming around, right? So all the other endeavors, all the other projects, all the other initiatives, right? And mostly know the people, know you guys, right? So I didn't felt to share this beforehand.
No, it's cool. It's cool, and it's nice to have your perspective. And you could see how people are influenced by their past, because and learning how about you more, and getting to know you better, Vinicius, and your as a human being, as a social being. Then I can understand where this comes from. and then you get these programmers or engineers, technical people that are into the paradigm of controlling the environment, of making stuff work the way they want, of
Which is
provoking
also
something that.
important, thanks.
Sorry,
Which is also important sometimes. But yeah,
is what?
it's also important sometimes.
Oh, it is very important. I mean, we need engineers because we need them to build a bridge that doesn't collapse, right? So and have a building that
And all our
performs in.
clothes and food and the
Yes, for sure,
and everything
But
else.
the problem is when the same programmer engineering mind thinks about building that flawless algorithm. The problem is that when the same mind is applied to building an organization that might sustain that same software. You know what I'm saying? I think the problem that we have is getting out of our box and understand that we're not operating on computers now. We're operating on people, and there is a social dimension that, as an engineer, we might not understand.
Yeah, but
or
I
as
think
a
there's
programmer.
a lot to be appreciated too. Like understanding that human brains are actually computers. That does help. Stuff like that can help, right?
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say, Anthony, is that the DAO movement, the way we see it today, is heavily driven by programmers. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're taking their engineering paradigm into the social sphere, and they think if they are God in the computer world, because the machine can be their slave. Let's say they can make the machine do whatever they want. They think that same applies to society, and society, it's a much more complex system than that. And
Some of them probably believe that, but I think a lot of them are just taking what little they have and what little they do know and trying to make something, if anything, out of it. I mean, I think that's the bulk of it.
well, I don't attribute evil intent. It's just that.
No, but I think definitely some of these people do seem to overestimate their abilities, as you described. But I think a lot of them are just trying to budge things forward just a little bit, and they know that's not very good. Like I understand that, like we were talking about formal rules earlier, and formal rules are very difficult to get anything good and useful out of. Like we look at the legal system and how ridiculously convoluted and extraordinarily big and practically impossible to use it is. And that's what happens with formal rules. You're trying to control something very complicated with something which is pretty rudimentary. And I understand that. Like I don't have this arrogance to think that I can write a computer program that people are going to follow. But that doesn't mean computer programs don't have some applicability here, right? Like we can still make some progress.
Yeah, I agree with you, Anthony. And the other thing that I forgot to share with you guys that this cultural DAO dynamics is not strange to deal with the, pro, the typical algorithmical and programming DAOs that are out there. Okay, so in this framework that you guys are seeing here, Utopia is actually is going to establish some different types of DAOs, algorithmical DAOs in Aragon or in Colony or in other places that are going to just run like a regular DAO, right? A regular weight DAO, but is just to nurture the cultural DAO. Let's nurture. That is something that we're going to start to experiment now in 2022, but is going to have a very deep relationship with the threefold version 3 grid that we didn't talk about here today. And in this sense is going to have a very close relationship with the Cosmos proposal, that this environment of interoperable blockchains that is coming around. So, of course, I think we won't have the time to speak about this today, and but I love the way that we drove this conversation here, this first conversation of the Reimagining Wealth initiative for this year, for this nascent year, and for me, guys, one of the things that really makes me uh, uh, drives my life, drives me with meaning, is to co-create this blueprint, right? This blueprint that allows any endeavor that has in its conception, right? Any project, initiative, endeavor that has in its conception uh, uh, a regenerative matrix on it, in the sense that it's related to the regenerative movement as a whole. It can feels invited to be part of, right? It can feels invited to be part of this cultural DAO dynamics that, in a broader sense, I've been calling ecology of DAOs, right? In this ecology of DAOs, and that's the thing that I sense that we were talking about some sense, but we were talking only through the perspective of a decentralized shareable fund, right? And even TB doing the first movement of opening, having, sharing a percentage of the wealth that is around the open source projects in Sensorica, where people, to this, let's say, decentralized shareable fund that we really didn't start doing it yet, but we can start it this year, and that's it. For me, this is a really thrilling thing, and it doesn't eliminate, it doesn't, is not adversarial to any type of current DAOs that are out there, right? We can have all sorts of interfaces with the DAOs that are there. So that's my take. I just add that, Anthony, because I felt that was interesting to say. I'm not saying here that the actual DAO scene is bugged by sovereign, godlike programmers, right? So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we can make the DAO scene happen in a very socially and culturally way, and we can extract in the better wording possible. Even if we have the, because when we say extract, it's not a good word, right? So we can extract. What I say is we can see what suits better for this cultural DAO environment to evolve, using technology, using protocol, using more organizational structures. That's it, what I'm trying to say.
Sounds good. I look forward to seeing some progress there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
man, actually is in progress already. You can actually already interact with it because there's an app, in a beta mode, and
Yeah.
you can actually download it to your smartphone and making contact with this type of experiment. So it's something tangible. It's not something theoretical. It's already happening. So
I'll go check it out. I'm pretty sure I did, but I'll check it out again. Okay, I gotta go, guys, but I'll see you soon, hopefully. Bye.
Good.
okay,
Yeah, good
Okay.
discussion. Thank you. Thanks for your participation, Anthony. And
yeah. Wait, Chibi. The document is here, man. I contextualize a little bit. First of all, what it is and why DAO, and I try to really put in a nutshell here. Each paragraph that I wrote here, it could turn out to be a book.
yeah,
So it's very compressed. Yeah, but
is
it's
this something that you work alone on, or you can share so we could cross reference maybe?
yeah. No,
some
no, no.
point?
Please, man. I already share in the chat the link to it.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Okay. Oh, this
yeah.
chat here.
Yes, this chat here.
Yes.
And feel free to come within and to aggregate if you want. This doc is not completed, as I said. This is, I started doing it and I didn't finish it because I felt that we're really in fresh waters in 2020 related to the concept itself, and we were most interested in the experimentation per se. Uh,
Yeah.
so
When did you start writing it? I mean, when was this written?
was in August or September or August of 2020. So
Oh, it's pretty
was
fresh. Okay. Okay, so it's
yes,
like a year and a half.
year and a half. Yes, pretty fresh.
Yeah.
But considering the velocity of things, this is like a 10-year-old document, right? So
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Me too. I'm going over some of my documents and posts and blogs, and I read them once in a while, and for me, everything I write is a living thing. So I go back to my blogs and rewrite them based on new realities.
What
Yeah.
I find interesting is that what I put here, I made this solely by myself, right? It wasn't a collaborative written dynamics, but as you know me, I like to do collaborative written dynamics. But in this case, I was bubbling at the time with 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 I was challenging myself and being challenged by Utopia as a different kind of endeavor, right? And I felt that I had to put this on my own. So I actually did this by my own. But interesting that I put it to a peer review with the guys within Utopia at the time, right?
Hmm.
But no one felt to react properly. They felt it was too much things to chew here, or to metabolize,
Yeah.
to better understand, and even even the understanding that folks was having at the time about DAOs was not really clear, and as you know me, GB, I was deep diving on it and having all sorts of experiences. So this is the first this is the thing that came out of my deep diving experiences uh, since 2017 or 16. I've
Okay.
written other things, other pieces, but not this, because you see, as I said, I can expand each paragraph here. I can expand a lot because there's a lot to say, right?
Yeah.
And I was viewing that it already had different waves of DAOs, community-driven DAOs, uh, and I put the examples here, governance and collaboration frameworks for DAOs, and I put it here. Uh, and I asked, is Utopia already a DAO? No, it's not. And I start describing it, and unique DAO blueprints, or what we were calling Utopia Flow, but we're not actually calling Utopia Flow anymore. But yeah, I was calling Utopia Flow as a cultural DAO, right? And we're talking about Stigmergy, as you see here, and not only that, and I was talking, I was very having deep talks with permaculture people in the regenerative movement, and I start to see that using the terminology, right, using the language, hybrid seeding, you see, the old DAO inception, and all this terminology here that we're actually not using, but it serves as a input, as a cultural, as a conceptual input to do what we're doing today, and we're calling cultural DAO and ecology of DAOs, right?
Yeah.
B2B
Yeah.
cultural nurturing, so better running cluster. This is happening, right? The pollination flows, or that is very important to do. That's the net weaving dynamics to evolve the DAO resources.
Yeah,
So
I guess collaborative networks like societies, they need a manifesto, or they need a some sort of book of revelation, right? To at least guide the principles of development, right? You know, you need to impose, or not to impose, but you need to create some reinforce some pathways, right? So that when the thing starts to emerge, um, it grows into a direction that is chosen. with a lot of freedom to, you know, to um, um, become something different, but still not become the opposite that you wanted to become. A lot of people talk about emergence. You know, they say, "Oh, emergence. It's like this divine thing that comes into a group and makes it organized or self-organized in a particular way." That's not true. You know, so you have to put some how do you say? You have to put some boundary conditions, right? You got to put some boundary conditions. Um, let's say you put 100 people in a room and you close the door. You can come back and see them organized in a circle and talking about interesting things, or you can find them fighting each other like in a Western bar fight. You know, everybody throwing chairs around. um, so that's self-organization. You know, all these outcomes are self-organization of that system that you closed in that space. But if you put some boundary conditions, you know, you say, okay, guys, I'm gonna lock you in here, and when I come back, I hope you learn something new. Well, maybe that phrase will, you know, engage or seed some form of self-organizing. So I think these documents serve that purpose to provide some sort of boundary conditions to the emergence process, right?
Yeah, boundary
And
and bonding too. Boundary and bonding. I would put both.
yes, yes. Well, people resonate to it, and then they realize that they share some values, and they like that idea and the other one. For sure. Yeah, we do that too. So it's necessary. I'm gonna go through it because it seems to be like the book of Revelation of Utopia, right?
Yeah, it's. I'm going to say something about this what you just shared that I don't disagree. Okay, my friend, but it's interesting because when I wrote this like something that was bubbling inside, right?
Mhm.
It was bubbling inside because all this expansion movement that I did uh, by making some deep dives and having some profound conversations with folks, all sorts of folks in different social worlds, with different languages, with different cultural inputs, and having conversations with the guys of the actual DAOs, right? So was something that I needed to do. I felt that I needed to put this in place. But uh, and what you're seeing there written, TB, actually is only, I don't know, 25 or 30% of my impressions. I didn't really expand on that, right? I really tried to put it in a nutshell, and,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to put in a nutshell, to
Hmm.
compress things, right? It's very difficult, and because it has to be a working, let's say, a working white paper for Utopia's
Hmm.
proposal, right? So it was interesting that uh, I would say that no one really reacts to it or really peer review it. And I felt that it wasn't the time uh, to force a hand on it, right? I said, "Oh, come on, guys, let's take a look
Hmm.
at this together." No, I felt that I was like I was in another, not another planet, like I was in another galaxy, right? And exploring this another galaxy, seeing all sorts of planets and moons, right? And the guys were still on Earth, looking at the
Yeah.
skies and wow, planning their their travel to Mars, right? So, and I would say, wow, I'm. That's not the thing, but I, I don't want to feel distant, right, from what we're co-creating here,
Yes.
and
But it's always like that. There is always a person with a vision far, far, far away, and that person might be wrong
yeah, of
for the
course.
for the end vision, you know. And if that's why dictatorship doesn't work, because Hitler can take you in the very wrong direction, but he's
Yes.
still a polarizing figure and a visionary. So the thing is to have like a sort of, there's always a visionary in a tribe, but then uh,
people should contribute to that vision and steer the project and adapt it and
Yeah, that's
adapt it.
you're man, you're you're right on point here because uh, I'm critical about it. I'm aware about it, right? I'm very critical and aware about what you just said, right? And I don't feel myself as a visionary, and I don't want. Of course, I can't. Uh, I can't restrain people viewing myself as a visionary, but what I'm saying is that I prefer to be the guy that is exploring moment by moment and discovering within all the things that are happening, right? In that sense, this is very interesting because I was exploring and I was learning, right? Learning as I was exploring all sorts of things with people, right? With people. I didn't do that academic perspective research of just looking at the thing as an object to be studied, as you know. I was really deep diving, really having relationships, and really having doing the in a learning mode, in a constant learning, open learning mode. So, but I felt that the guys that were co-creating Utopia at a time with me, they weren't in this this learning mode. So, what I start I didn't continue to do this paper, and I let's say I I I merge myself with I did that move. You see, I merge myself even more with the actual perspectives and culture that people was having at the time. So even wanting to understand their perspective, right? I want to merge. I want to empathically merge and to access their perspective to be able to co-create with them whatever was vibrating, let's say, as something to be experienced, right? So I did that move. I really did that move, and
So you
was
didn't take a
interest-
leadership role.
No, man. I
Yeah,
never
follow my vision, guys.
yeah, I never do that. I thought when I shared this document and I was only hearing crickets. Right?
Yeah.
I sh- so there's something's happening here or not happening. Oh come on! And I was wow. I think that was too much or it's not the time. So I always refuse to have any leadership in anything in this sense because I understand that the richnesses of being human is to be more human, right? Is to understand the complexities of being human, right? And to access all sorts of perspectives and livelihoods.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
livelihoods. For me,
Yeah, I
for me
would
that
agree.
that's the thing. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Good.
Ben, my friend, was a very. I'm pleased that you were able to wake up and be here. I'm very pleased.
Yeah.
Anthony, too. I'm pleased that Anthony was here with us, and we could have this first conversation. This is our first conversation of 2022, and this proposal here.
Yes,
this,
it is.
This,
Yes.
this dynamics. I really love it. And as the conversations that we had before, uh, all the things that I shared with you, they are still in place, right? So if you want to, we can still do these deep dives weekly as we have been doing through the Reimagining Wealth initiative. But as I said to you, it's going to be nice if we have more conversations and I don't want to say daily basis, but in weekly basis more often, so we can really start deep diving in some things that are really going to enrich all the things that we've been experimenting here.
Yeah.
So-
Tim wants to facilitate some videos.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's a pretty smart guy, and he's picking up some topics that we have lined up in the Sensorica we have a document called Sensorica TV, and he's exploring that document, and he said this year I'm gonna do more of these videos. I'm gonna facilitate them, so you can bug him and maybe he can do it as a utopia. How do you say?
Yeah, not forgetting that is there's another experiment that's so interesting as Utopia that is Taudal, right? It is even more radical, in a sense that it's even more radical in a sense that that doesn't have that minimal organizational framework that Utopia has. So
Yeah.
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 Okay, man.
Okay. Cool, man.
Pleasure always, and let's not forget to do our OCAS experience outreach dynamics. So let's see if we can set this up at the end of.
Team, I think he wants to do some. So just bug him on Discord for that.
Okay, man. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Be well, my friend. Be well.